This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
We're here. We're back. Welcome to another episode of the 21.5 Professional Pilots Podcast, hosted by two professional pilots, friends since college, now brother-in-laws.
Brothers-in-law, I think, is the correct way to pronounce it.
Brothers-in-law,
Yeah.
correct. Thank you.
It's a show for professional pilots. Hello, my name is Dylan in business aviation. Welcome. Maxwell, I think
Yes,
we've
sir.
got to start off by talking about a shared Father's Day experience we had yesterday. You inaugurated me into your brotherhood. Can you tell the listeners about your latest purchase and what you're up to?
Well, yeah, it's our. We also go to the same like chiropractor, and I've been having some soft tissue. I think did I mention this before? I got the
We're so
lamest
old. Yeah,
injury
we're-
of all
we're
time. I somehow injured my forearm. I don't even
Lifting
know
your
how.
heavy chart case, probably.
It's horrible, dude.
Doing
Because
jet
every
revisions.
time you go to shake somebody's hand, like at Southwest, every time a crew, that's the worst. Is having your hand vertical like that and then squeezing, and you can't just like, what are you gonna do? Like fist bump everybody and
Yeah.
look like an idiot? So anyway, so so you turned me on to our boy Frank, and we've been going there, and he's like, man, if you want to continue to do stuff like you were younger, you're gonna have to figure something else out to help recovery. And I've listened to a lot of the data on cold plunges, and I've been just like crossing my fingers that there was no substantial data that would come out to make this, because it is miserable. It's horrible. Like, who wants to do that, right? But Frank's like, you know what, man? He goes, the data. There's only one study basically that says, for delayed onset muscle soreness, it is effective, but for all the other stuff, like there's just been no long-term studies. He goes, just try it. You will get the results if you just try it. And I'm like, oh, no, fine. And so yeah, I tried it, and it does work for like, it's just like when you played football in high school and you would have like a sore shoulder and you would ice your shoulder. Well, now when you're 45, everything is sore. So you need an ice pack for your whole body. And that is what a cold plunge does. It just makes your joint, everything that's sore. So after the gym or whatever, it's great to go in the cold plunge. So I'm like, Dylan, you got it. And I think Frank's can grind you a little bit about it too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So we did the cold plunge yesterday. Dylan took it like a man.
I have a lot of insulation. That's on my side. I think that's very helpful. But it was cool. Now I got to figure out how to acquire one for myself. And you do it in the mornings normally? Remember when we were like right out of college and work, and we would like go and sit in your hot tub and read the newspaper every morning and drink coffee? Do you like sit in your cold plunge and drink coffee now, or is it no?
No, because it's not enjoyable. It's miserable. Yeah. But no, I generally do it post trauma. If I'm going to the gym or working out today or whatever, then I'll go as soon after that is, I think, the best. But if not, then I just go when it's convenient.
I got some footage. Maybe the Khaleesi can make a little cold plunge reel of us.
I don't know if
you were
people
still
want to
quoting.
What does that have
Bob?
to do with aviation? That is the question.
You were still
that
quoting
appropriate
What
here?
About Bob in the cold plunge, so that was good.
Well,
Okay.
you just told me someone wrote in. Are we going to read that today? Bob?
I gotta find it. Yeah, someone gave us a shout out for What About Bob references. I was hoping just one listener would, so I feel like we're justified. We're vindicated.
You got to wonder how many people that haven't seen that.
this
It's
off.
getting pretty old.
Yeah.
But
all right, we better
anyway.
talk about aviation here and reel the listeners back in. If we lost you, you can come back here.
This is an aviation podcast.
That's right.
I promise.
Let's talk about some airplane stuff. Max, you've been doing all the cool stuff lately because my airplane's been in the shop. But I'll start. Well, no, you start. You recently went to a forbidden country. Can you talk a little bit about your...
Yeah, I traded into a trip just because it was like the days that I needed to work and I needed to move a trip around, and I picked it up, and it was had a Havana turn, which is kind of cool. I went to Cuba in college under one summer for, I can't remember, it was like a week or week and a half under an educational visa. So it was legal. And, we hopped on a flight like this where it was right from LAX with a bunch of other people that had legal reasons to go to Cuba. Mostly, I think it's because people have family there.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, at Southwest, we run service to Havana. It's just a turn. We don't.
You say from LA? Not from LAX.
No, from Tampa.
Oh, okay.
Is where I did it from. I think we did it from Fort Lauderdale too. But so yeah, it was just kind of when you're an airline pilot, and
you don't do new stuff that often.
Very rare that you go somewhere you haven't been.
Yeah,
and even then, Havana is a little more interesting than most of the places we go anyway. So it was cool. It was interesting. Got to go in, buy my kids some Cuban baseballs.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Well, you can go off. It's funny, they don't let the flight attendants off, but the pilots are allowed to go in. I guess they had problems with them like coming out, making the flight late or whatever, because they have like stuff you can buy in there.
Oh, I see.
I tell you, I walked by, I looked at the box of Cubans, I was like, oh, I really want to bring that home.
Yeah,
cigars.
Right. Okay. Not people. Okay, got it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. One for each wheel well. It would have been fine.
I don't know where you were going with that one. Dude,
yeah,
you know
it was
what?
cool though.
I might be getting this wrong. I'm not even going to tell this story because I think I don't have enough details. So we will skip over that. Cool. And they love to like give like the line guys and the rampers like Coca-Colas. Was that still a thing? I remember that was a thing in corporate. You didn't even.
No, I don't think that was a thing. This is funny though. So we land and I see I'm kind of into like these old Russian airliners and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then we land and I see on the rollout, like midfield, there's some old Cubana, like an IL-96 and a Tupolev 204 and some Antonovs. And I was like, oh sweet. And I'm like, perfect. Cause we basically the ramp is at that side of the runway and they were using the runway we landed on, and so I was like, perfect. We're in a taxi right by it up on my side of the airplane. I'll get some good photos, whatever. And then we literally call for taxi, and they're like, "Oh, runway change in progress. Advisement ready to copy reroute." And I'm like, so they had to give you a whole reroute, which is just a departure change, but it was like this monumental effort. And then they're like, they give us this reroute clearance, different departure. Like, okay, taxi position or line up and wait. And I'm like, bro, this is the airlines. We got to go run checklists and rebrief and rerun. So it's
so no pictures.
Yeah, so no picture. I was so pissed. And I was like, man, that was it.
Bummer.
I know. Never works out.
Never works out. But you at least you saw it.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Right.
All right. So like I mentioned, I've had some time off and. So we went to Washington, D.C., took the kids, did all the museums and everything. Listeners know that my kids are... I have my older son's more into aviation than the younger one, but they're both pretty interested. And so we've been to a lot of aviation museums, been in the cockpit of the Spruce Goose and seen a fair amount of things. And so the Air and Space Museum in D.C. was our big grand finale. And so it was on the final day in the afternoon. You have to book tickets. You don't have to pay for them, but you have to reserve a time to go in. And so we got our tickets, and it was we had all afternoon set aside to do it. We get in there. 60% of the museum is closed for renovation. And it was just a couple different halls. And you're just you got to be kidding me.
Did you get to see because you did not go to the Udvar J. Hazy one out by Dulles, right?
That was the problem. I have been there before.
Was that one 100% open though?
That one's 100% open, free, no tickets, come whenever you want. But we didn't know until the final day. The problem is it's an hour away. And we didn't have a car, so it'd have been kind of
you
a
were there all
there.
week, so yeah, you probably couldn't find an hour to go to the best aviation museum in the country.
Yeah,
I get that. I mean, an hour is an hour.
Actually, is it the best one? I have heard that the one at Wright-Patterson is better.
I've been to that one too.
You have? I have not.
I have.
I've heard a lot of people tell me that one's amazing.
It is very cool. It's obviously a lot more military focused.
Yeah.
I think it depends on they have some really cool stuff like the Have Blue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like
the predecessor to the Nighthawk. Yeah.
Yeah, that was there. That's kind of cool to see. There's a lot of historic, some cool stuff there. But yeah, that's what at the Air and Space Museum. I mean, they have like the Bell X-1.
Yeah.
They have the freaking
which we didn't get to see.
Voyager, right? Do they have the?
They have the Wright Flyer.
Gator?
We saw the Wright Flyer. They used to, the Wright Flyer when we were there a long time ago was like hanging from the ceiling. Now they have an entire room dedicated to it.
But the Wright Pat one has the XB-70 Valkyrie.
Oh,
like, that thing's pretty. You're just standing there like, oh, that's quite a machine.
So
for the 60s,
it's cool, and I'm sure once it's redone, it's going to be awesome. But it's been in renovation since 2018. Apparently, we just didn't do a good job of checking the details there. So that was the one letdown of the trip, but still cool.
That's right. But at least, hey, you know what though? At least you saved that hour drive. So
yeah, we did. It's perfect because we'll be back there soon. We live right down the street. Actually, cool. Another cool
right down the street.
Yeah. Another cool story though. Remember, we just did an email from that listener, Robert, who was flying for the National Park Service, the helicopters, and then he went on Southwest. We had him the whole thing. I got to see those helicopters in action, like flying all around. I think they were flying on like a Friday afternoon, like right over the monuments when we were there. It seemed like maybe they were, I don't know if they were like clearing the area for the Marine One helicopter. I have no idea, but it was pretty interesting. So
that is cool.
That was quite cool. We also saw one of the helicopters that I think they would use as Marine One as well. So all in all, cool. Super fun trip.
All the things, huh?
Yeah, all the things. Yep. So that's the only aviation stories I really have, except for Cessna 150 flying. But that's very quiet.
Did you tell everyone about your big checkout already?
Fully checked out. Yeah, fully checked out. That thing is going to be so fun to fly.
Was a 500 foot per minute climb ever exceeded? That's my question.
It's the problem is like when I take my weight, just the weight of me, and then divide it by the horsepower of the engine, like the ratio there is not very good. And then
did you do any like power off, like simulated engine failures during your checkout?
Yeah, it's I did. Yeah, we already talked about this on the show.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, high key, low key, everything. All right. You kind of had an eventful trip to Aspen as well.
Yeah, that was.
I think Aspen, Havana, no big deal.
Yeah, we went to Aspen. We did the approach. It was fine. It was clear, a million, whatever. And then we saw a couple of people do the circle to 1.5. So
3.3.
Or 3.3, I'm sorry. Yeah, land 1.5 and depart 3.3, but this would be landing 3.3, which is very close to a lot of terrain, basically.
Yes.
You kind of have to, and there's two methods. We saw people, so we were staying at this hotel, and they had like the pool and hot tub and stuff on the roof, so we could see right over in downtown Aspen, so you could see people that would do one way to circles to come, and you kind of whip right over town and then make a tight turn in the canyon and come in on the base and like short base and whip it in and land, right?
Wow. And
then there's this other approach called the Hunter Creek Arrival, which I didn't see anybody do it. That doesn't mean anybody didn't, but we're looking at it, and I think you told me about it. And there's like somebody has on the internet. There's like a chart with some waypoints and some good like overlays on satellite imagery and stuff, so you can kind of see. But it basically allows you to come in, kind of over town again. But it no, this isn't ForeFlight. I just saved this to my documents thing in ForeFlight. But it kind of has you come over Red Table and then around downtown, and so you're not making these big 180 or big tight long turns, kind of like 90-degree turn and then like a less than 90 to the runway. So we kind of were all briefed up and prepped to do that, and because when we left, the winds were forecast to turn around and like be out of the north decently enough where you wouldn't be able to land too much of a tailwind. So we're all ready to do that and come back. And I've done the circle in the sim a bunch of times just to over town, but I have never done the Hunter Creek Arrival. But I'm like, this seems a lot safer,
a lot more civilized.
So we're all ready to do it. So we blast off, and I'm looking to see, because gas is obviously ridiculous in Aspen. So we're going to drop some people off and go back to Aspen, and I pull up on ForeFlight. I'm looking at the runway performance to see how much gas we could bring back in, make sure we could, tanker a bunch in. And it says runway 15, or it says the runway is closed. I'm like, what? I'm like, and I click on it, and there's like this NOTAM that just got issued. I'm like, we just left there like half an hour ago, and they'd closed the runway because a runway one of the generator powered lights that they put out, like, the big X or whatever. Yeah. I'm not sure which one it was, but they had one out and it had caught on fire and damaged the runway. Like, we just departed the runway. Obviously, it wasn't that big of a deal, right? And it's like way on the edge of the runway. And so anyway, they Aspen just decides to close the airport for arrivals starting at 11 a.m. and then departures at 5 p.m. So everyone there is like has to leave. So needless to say, we did not get to do the Hunter Creek arrival circle to 3-3, and we got to do the rifle hour and 20-minute drive to Aspen. So
it's a rite of passage for every corporate pilot.
Yeah.
I had to do it with the owner one time. We all shared the car.
That's always the hard part.
Yeah.
I remember we did that approach in the G3, dude, back in with the intercepted localizer on, missed approach. And we had enough gas to like go back to Phoenix, and owner's like, hey, can we halt? Can we try it again? I'm like, we can, but we'll probably miss. And then we'll get to rifle and there'll be no cars and no transportation. So I think we should divert right now. He's like, oh, yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
Because that's the
problem. Yeah.
That's the problem is the transportation.
Oh, we can get you an SUV right away, sir. It'll be $2,800 to get you up to Aspen.
Yeah, but you have to wait 4 hours.
Yeah.
That's
not good.
Yeah, it was bad. And they just canceled all the airline flights in there. It was kind of a disaster.
Yeah. Well, if you want more on Aspen, remember when we actually talked to our boy Jason Herman about Aspen? And we did an entire podcast on flying in and out of Aspen.
That's right.
So we'll have a link in the show notes to that episode. The number escapes me. That was early on in our 21.5 days. But yeah, we did talk about that. I'd love to see if you got a video of flying into the Hunter Creek arrival on 3-3. It'd be cool to see as well.
That would be cool. There is one on the internet already.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, on the thing. And then the other thing too about Aspen that there's the missed approach or whatever.
Yeah.
That is not, the hugest deal in the world if you just kind of know what you're getting into. But you execute that missed approach way back from the runway, right? The missed approach point is not over the end of the runway. It's way out there.
Oh, yeah.
So the real deal is the balked landing. If you're landing on 15 and there's like a 50-foot go around, that's the real deal.
Yeah, exactly. Which not a lot of people
something, if you go in there, I think you should practice in the sim. So when we go back to the sim, this is on our list, is the visual approach runway 3-3. We have no plans to go back there, but just for fun. And then the balked landing off of 1.5.
Yeah, I've done that in the sim as well. It's great.
Single engine even too. Have you done that? The single engine missed.
Single engine blocked landing. Can't remember if we did that one. I think it was just a 2-engine one. And I think they did it it was really well done because the scenario, because it was where we shot the approach. How did we do this? I remember we shot the approach, broke out really high, and then as we did the balked landing, they brought the clouds down. So we're like, oh, balked landing, we'll just visually, avoid the mountain. And then poof, like we were right back into the clouds. And the guy was like, all right, now what? So
yeah,
that's kind of a good scenario. But anyways, I got one more thing on the list here before we jump into book club chapter 5. Flying with an owner. Kind of an interesting job in the corporate world. So for folks that may not know, there are certain jobs, certain airplanes that are owned by folks who happen to also be pilots. A lot of businessmen are also pilots. And so there are some jobs where you'll fly kind of as I don't want to say, some jobs are you're just the babysitter. Some jobs it's actually more of a professional crew. But often the owner will be one of the pilots. And you and I have both been in that situation before. And we just came across a opportunity in Scottsdale. Someone was reached out to us to tell us about one with an owner pilot. And I just thought it'd be interesting to chat about it for a minute and reflect on our experiences doing it.
Yeah, it's one thing where even if the person you fly with is like the manager of the flight department or whatever, but it's very different to fly with the person that signs your paycheck.
Yep. Exactly.
it's an interesting dynamic.
You got to have some finesse.
And most of it is up to them,
the
owner being that how they kind of set the tone of the whole thing. But I flew with the one dude who was an owner that was he was good enough. He was a decent, good enough pilot and everything. He would I remember he always was trying a little too hard to save fuel,
Yeah.
And he would just, we didn't have, it was very archaic. It was in that Beach Jet serial number 1.
Yeah.
That we flew that had all round dials, had basically, the original monochromatic Kalen 89 King. It was like that GPS.
Yeah.
It was
amazing.
And it had a function where it would calculate the feet per minute,
Mm-hmm.
the descent rate to cross stuff. And he would just let it get way too aggressive and be just falling out of the sky like a rock. And I was just like, this is so
what are we doing?
unnecessary. How, and I looked too, the same leg that we flew without him. Because we did have 2 pilots. It wasn't always with the owner, just occasionally. And the fuel burn was within 20 pounds or something. I mean, nothing.
It was money out of his pocket, Max.
But we're going to miss this cross. We're so close to missing the cross or missed it. It was just this is the dumbest thing. Or we'd hit it too fast.
What are we doing?
Yeah. But what are you going to say? He's paying
tighten
for
up
gas,
that formation, airman. I had the opposite experience. So the owner pilot I flew with, also in Beach Jet, shout out to the Beach Jet, he had no interest in flying. He was simply in the right seat because he didn't want to pay anybody else. So it was because the owner pilot stuff, the hardest part is when you're sitting in the right seat watching somebody fly and you've got to like Max is saying, finesse, maybe we should flare, this might be a bad idea. But at least my situation was he had no desire to actually do, so that was nice. I didn't have to worry about that. The problem was he talked on the radios. And he also was interested in saving time and money. He was constantly asking the controllers for direct everywhere.
That's
great
what this
example.
was like too.
We would be if you've ever flown into Van Nuys or Burbank, we're coming from the desert, from the east, from Phoenix, and he'd be the whole time, can I get direct? Can we get direct to the airport?
That was back on the Lynx 8 days, right? Where it's you go behind the mountains.
Bro, we got to go 100 miles out of our way. They're not just going to give us direct. Plus, there's a mountain range right there. It's not possible. He's like, I'm just going to ask. And I'd be like, dude, they're not going to give it to you. And so we'd be up in the flight levels, clearly a jet, and he'd be like, can we get direct Van Nuys? And the controllers were like, no. Don't ask.
Did he fly much?
Never.
Or did he mostly just sit in the right seat?
No, it was great. I mean, that part was fine. It was just constantly just sitting there. And you're just all right, man, it's whatever you want to say. You're just going to make us sound like morons. But,
well, that's better than at the airline sometimes, cabin be hey, ask for direct. And you're like, dude. But then you have to be the moron.
Yeah, I know.
You're forced to
at
be
least
the
it was him. It was just, but it was just.
Well, yeah, just ask. Just ask.
What could be the harm?
That's
and
what
then
I'm like, dude,
the worst part was 1 out of 1,000 times they would give him direct too. So then it was see.
I had a guy. I flew with a dude like that, and he's like, I was like, this is gonna be perfect because I had normally when you eat, you're like, hey, you got the radios, and you eat your lunch, and as soon as he started pulling the direct nonsense, I'm like, your radios, and I pulled out a sandwich.
Yeah.
Flip my mic up.
Go ahead. You
go for it. You ride this pony.
Yeah. So interesting. So it's not for everybody, I would say. But it's just like everything else in corporate, especially if you find the right situation, you find an owner that you get along with, or maybe that trusts your judgment, or could be a freaking awesome.
It's just
deal.
very dependent on the owner, and like I said, the tone. Remember the one? There's an infamous one in Scottsdale, a dude who always wanted to fly, and he would always do the takeoffs and landings, but he'd take off, climb up a little bit, and then unbuckle and be like, all right, you have the aircraft, and go in the back and sit there the whole flight.
And we're not talking about a Citation Bravo. We're talking about Dassault wide cabin 7X.
Yeah,
type.
7X.
Oh,
yeah. And then
off
they would
to Europe we go, and then let me know. let me know when
we're go in the back and sleep and hang out, and then literally not even top of descent. He comes in on the arrival.
All right.
You're slowing to 250. He's like, oh, all right.
All right, let's do
Sounds
this.
good. What runway are they using?
Yeah,
Great.
perfect.
All right.
Let's do this.
Once you brief me on the landing, I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. Can you imagine
That's not good.
Jeez. Yeah, so real
Which
feast or
again, that's
famine.
another dude. That's like, it was a very, very wealthy person. This,
Yeah.
Like, hire another. Fine. Kick him out and go do the landing. Who cares? But like,
Yeah. Bogus might. Well, and
Ted would have been thrilled. Remember, that would have been his dream job.
Who?
Remember, he was telling us, Ted.
Oh yeah, that would be.
He could have been the relief guy. Just comes up. All right.
The relief
just
guy,
sits
yeah,
there.
right with his switch. Comes right in. All right, what are we doing? Oh,
What are we
man.
doing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the owner-pilot thing, too, in recent days, the insurance market has really shot a lot of that down, too. I know the single-pilot owner-flown airplane is almost like a thing of the
Yeah,
past
it's
for
getting
the
real tough.
heavy metal. But anyways, yeah, so send Max a message on LinkedIn if you're interested in that single-pilot or that owner-flown deal. He'll set it up. Eagle Careers has the exclusive listing on that.
Yeah.
Could be awesome. All right. Chapter 5, Hard Landing, Book Club. This was a good one, Max. I read this one last night and highlighted, sended you some screenshots of some of my favorite passages. But you want to just give us a quick overview of Chapter 5?
Well, this is post right after deregulation, right?
Yep.
And everybody's kind of scrambling. And so this is focusing on Frank Lorenzo and a little airline called Texas Air that he was running. He's like, well,
Texas International.
or Texas International, I'm sorry. And they figured out that in this new era, they were too small to go head to head with United or American,
Yep.
TWA, but they weren't small enough to be nimble enough and like Southwest was at the time.
Yeah.
To keep their costs low and be able to fly some stuff that and not have to compete with head to head with people and do some creative things. So they figured out that they were just going to die if they didn't either, grow substantially. So it was interesting to figure out how they ended up doing that, right? And to keep his costs low instead of expanding their own airline. He oh wait, no, I'm getting him confused. with Bird.
No, you're right. Yeah. No, they basically created an alter ego airline. Texas Air.
So
New York,
that's right.
which
They
called-
created Texas Air.
which they called it
And
New
then-
York Air or New York City Air. And that was kind of the basic start of this. The airlines have this problem, which is not problem, but the way it's built is with the unionization, right? And then you have these labor contracts, and then you have these workforces that age, and then your costs go up every single year. And so Lorenzo was kind of the first guy to figure out, well, why don't I just start a new airline? Then we can just start over on the bottom of the pay scale for everybody. So
and it was also non-unionized workforce.
Yeah.
The pay
at the time, yeah,
itself
the pay
was less,
lower.
and
Yep.
starting with everybody junior.
So he kind of innovated on that idea, and it was super unpopular. And the book mentions, ALPA was picketing and doing all this stuff. And the book, now this is just the opinion of the author, and we could probably find people that would say differently. The author said that it had no effect. ALPA's efforts had no effect and just actually raised awareness for the airline. And so
It was like
it kind of backfired.
any publicity is good
Yeah.
publicity kind of deal.
And then they said that Americans at the time didn't really care, were losing their organized labor was sort of falling out of favor with the general public, so no one really cared about that as much. So it sounded like...
And then right around that same time, a little bit after, is when the big controller strike, and then
Yeah.
Reagan fired them all.
Yes.
And that kind of put everybody as against unionized labor, sort of.
Yep.
Left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So
Yeah, and so that was sort of the start of these creative ways around labor and losing a lot of labor's leverage. And we sort of, by the time you and I got to the airlines, a lot of this had gone, right? Union contracts were now, they had figured out how to add language to avoid this sort of alter ego airlines and going around and starting new companies and doing that kind of stuff. But that was not that was through, blood, sweat, and tears that they figured all that out. And this is the beginning of explaining how that worked.
Yeah. And ultimately, Lorenzo's right-hand man, Burr, finally got fed up with his BS, and he bailed, and with a couple other people from his operation. Then they started their own company, which ended up being People Express, which is me like a whole new, like he's applying, appealing to Maslow's law and making everybody happy and maybe paying them less, but they wouldn't really care because they were so into it, and requiring them to, buy stock, even if it had to be lent money from the company to be invested. So if it went bankrupt, everybody went bankrupt, which interesting idea.
Yeah. Sign me up. Can't wait. Let's all go bankrupt together. He was definitely an idealist, and we've seen this happen still, I mean, I feel like the early stages of JetBlue, Breeze, some of these, right? David Nealman, I think, sort of carried parts of the torch of this, where it's like you're getting people to buy in. And I mean, I would say this even now still, like in my experience, the people at Southwest are always the friendliest. And
I was just going to say, who do you think invented that?
Yeah,
was Southwest,
it's like everybody, in my opinion, like I know the crews are going to be the friendliest and everything else. And the book goes on to illustrate, it's like, we may not offer the full steak dinner on the flight, but if it's only an hour-long flight and the flight attendants are nice and everyone's sort of happy. I mean, they even had like attractiveness guidelines for like the people they were hiring. So they figured the experience might cover up on some of the frills, Yeah, obviously you could never say this nowadays, but one of the other big things is they were cross training everybody to do other things, like be flight attendants and stuff. And they're like, yeah, everybody would be good looking. Like Burr says nobody will come to the headquarters in a wheelchair because they're all going to be cross trained as flight attendants, and they couldn't do that job handicapped. I'm like, oh my God, that's aggressive. But listen, it was a different time. Yeah. This was an interesting quote here regarding pilots, and he said, the idea of job rotation had another virtue. It would prevent the pilots of People Express from becoming aloof and independent, as they were at every other airline. Burr, at the bottom, mistrusted pilots. Pilots have a character flaw, he once explained. They have an innate sense of superiority and entitlement. Aggressive males are drawn to piloting. It's heavily left-brain dominant, very well toilet trained. Rotating pilots into other jobs, accounting, customer service, scheduling, whatever, would keep them focused on the company as well as the cockpit. It's very disruptive to have them only fly planes. It doesn't fully use their talents. Therefore, they get unhappy. They become bad employees. It went without saying that engaging pilots in the affairs of the company would also make them less prone to unionization.
What an idea, huh? Yeah, I know when I don't get to fully use my talent, I get real unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. I don't think that philosophy ended up working out as I examined the landscape today. But
pretty funny.
It was interesting. But that's what I think was so fascinating about this book is people were trying things. It was the Wild West. People didn't know. Oh, let's...
giving away bottles of booze or straight dinner,
all this stuff,
just all this stuff. Like everyone, it was creative. Because the thing was, there was so much. I don't know if you say more competition, but more people to compete with because there were so many more carriers, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you had this ability to try and set yourself apart.
I mean, they were talking about there was
20
airlines like that. They were like in the top 20 airlines. It was just so regional. The other interesting thing about this book or this chapter, Max, and I think it might be relevant to what's going on with some Southwest investors right now, is they started to talk about like leveraged buyouts and how Lorenzo was starting to figure out like I could buy a much bigger competitor by doing fancy maneuvering with Wall Street bankers, and that's how I can grow. And I think the biggest prime example of this is how America West went on to basically absorb U.S. Airways and American Airlines somehow, but we still see this today. And recently, I think, but wasn't there a group of investors that are trying to get changes enacted at Southwest?
Yeah, well, it's this company called Elliott. Yeah, they bought like a 10% stake, via stock in the company, and then wrote this open letter and called for replacement of the CEO and the board so that because they haven't evolved with the new environment of revenue generation with, charging for bags and all these different fare classes and, and all this stuff, which is interesting. Kind of throws, it's been in the news a lot. And I don't know. I mean, my opinion of it is, they may have some valid points, but, writing a letter and expecting it to axe all of the leadership at a company the next day. This is a pretty bold move. Yeah. Especially the biggest thing is that Southwest, before any of this, they'd said, look, they've acknowledged the fact that they need to capitalize on some additional revenue streams. And they said, we'll be revealing this plan in September at Investor Day. So I think that it will be, obviously, I don't think anything's going to happen until they have a chance to reveal their plan and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. Because why would you just axe everybody when they already have said they're revealing a plan to address the same things? Like it's, but certainly it adds a lot of pressure to do something. But I just think it's kind of interesting too, is that Southwest was always so innovative and stuff, but at a certain point you get to such a size, it makes it harder to do that. Like we're the largest domestic carrier by far. You can't just, but which has changed things at the airline, certainly. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
I will be listening in September for sure.
Yeah,
see what they
we'll
come up with. But at the end of the day too, it's like, what am I going to do? Like that's as pilot, people get so worked up about stuff that you, again, have zero control over.
Well, maybe Max, you're going to be doing one day a month in accounting. So maybe you can have something to do.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out what my cross train job was.
Wow.
What would you do? What would I do?
I'm trying to think if I was at another job at the airline.
I don't think I'd want to do any other job at the airline.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do an office job. I'd want to be like out and active.
Dispatcher. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I guess. That's cheating. Those guys aren't too important. They can't have a pilot. do something that's too
can't have pilots in charge of more than one flight at a time.
I guess. I mean, you wouldn't want to drive the tug. I don't think. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe provisioning.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, acquisitions.
Some of those guys, they have gals, they have a pretty good time, dude. They have the tunes bumping up there, they're just doing their thing, rocking out, stocking galleys.
I had a student from Embry-Riddle that I think actually switched into procurement for the airline. That would be kind of interesting. Oh, I know it would be really super interesting, doing some type of parts acquisitions, and I don't know. It'd be fascinating to learn about how huge scale maintenance operations work. So anyways, interesting chapter, and it's just a winding tale. So hopefully you've had a chance to catch up. If not, I got a link in the show notes. You can get your copy. We recommend the paperback copy available on Amazon, and you can join along. It's just going to get even more wild, and Frank Lorenzo, already public enemy number one from the pilots. Spoiler: he's not going to become any more. Its popularity is going to continue to.
Is he still around? Is he is he still alive?
That's a good question. Okay, all right. I got some questions for you, Max. So lately, we've just been going through a bunch of comments on the luggage review videos. Are you getting tired of those? Do you want me to keep reading some?
No, I love that no one will let me live down the fact that I called the Briggs & Riley the Briggs & Stratton, though.
We haven't got one of those in a couple weeks, so that's good.
We just got one. The guy just recently I read some email.
Yeah, we read that one already, yeah. Here's an easy one we can knock out. Someone said, please do a review of the Luggage Works Stealth. If you watch any of the videos, I think we constantly reviewed the Luggage Works Stealth. We said it was way too heavy and no one should use it, so...
but everybody has rallied in support of that thing.
Some.
Yeah, I shouldn't say everyone. Some.
Yeah, and then he said Flight Cube, which the Stealth Flight Cube looks like a briefcase type bag. Great, I think so. We could look into that maybe,
dude. And then did you hear the other news? Paradox coming out with a two-wheeled version. If you just can't get behind the four-wheeled.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's interesting. So we posted a poll the other day on that. I did a poll. Would you consider doing the four-wheeler bag? And what do you think the results were? We had just about 100 votes.
I'm sure some people would consider 100 votes. Let's see. Would you consider? I'd say it's probably 50-50.
That's pretty close. It's 58-42 with 58% saying no. Now, I would be curious to see if they had previously used one.
I'll tell you what the four-wheel bag needs. If for me to really bring it over the edge, would be a brake. Like if you could just on the handle just push a button, like because it's true, especially as a corporate pilot, if you put it on the ramp and it's windy, like it will blow away.
It blows away.
Or
Dude,
in the jet bridge too. It's always at an angle, to roll away.
Yeah. But you would need some type of brake, and it feels like that would complicate things, which would make things more expensive and more prone to fail.
You'd have to have like a cable with a push button and like
and then that could break.
I don't know. There's a way. They had that like on strollers, like a little brake.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be sick.
Okay. All right. Think about that. Oh, actually, you know what I was thinking, Max? What if we just did a pair of chalks? You just had a little pair of chalks in your backpack and you stopped.
Pair of chalks for your paradox? Dude, I'm going to 3D print some little miniature chalks.
Yeah, we should. That'd be hilarious. But have you been to certain FBOs where there's like way more like corporate rules you can tell, and like the guy comes out to bring you your iced coffee and papers in a golf cart and stops. He's got to get this big pair of chalks out and then like chalk the golf cart, and then you got to chalk every vehicle, and you're just like, all right, okay, I guess I understand this, but okay.
It has a little compartment too. You could put the chalks in.
Yeah, it's great. Oh yeah.
Hold on.
Oh my God. Let's chalk this right up here. Chalk this one up. Anyways, the Stealth Flight Cube, that looks like more of a briefcase, secondary bag, computer bag type thing. So we could put that on the list to review.
I'm really excited though for the Paradox, like for the flight case that is made to go
the flight
with.
kits.
That's going to be, I think, I'm very, very excited about that.
Yep. One other interesting comment here. It says, I've been using the LuggageWorks Executive Series for 3 years. It's got the look of the Stealth, but with plastic frames. It's lighter and won't bend. I think this is the happy medium between the Stealth and the Aurora. So, okay, that's a good one. So we're going to do a Travel Pro one. I think maybe we'll do this one next. We'll put a little poll out and see which ones you guys want us to cover. And then we also got some comments about the Helix. We got a whole email about the Helix, so we'll read that coming up as well. Do want to shift gears into reviews. Twisted Prop left us a review, so we're going to send that person some stickers for sharing their thoughts on Apple Podcasts. And we'd love to do the same to you. Just simply write a review on Apple Podcasts and then shoot us an email. And here's the key. You got to include your mailing address in that email. Let us know you wrote us a review. We'll be happy to send some stickers. Max, I have some big sticker announcements coming up soon here in a future episode as well. But for the time being, would you mind reading us the review Twisted Prop left us?
Sure. It says best aviation podcast for all aviation careers. So I appreciate how knowledgeable the hosts are and their willingness to be open to any flying job out there. This is one of the most diverse podcasts I've ever listened to in terms of aviation. Although it is, of course, mostly corporate and airline talk, I love the variety they include in their podcasts. Keep up the awesome work, guys.
Max, somebody just called me and you diverse.
How about that?
It's good.
It's due to our new initiatives.
That's right. Mixing it up. All right. Thanks for the review, Twisted Prop. Appreciate it. And all the comments on the YouTube videos as well. It's been great to see all of the action there. Okay. On to the mailbag, which is, of course, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Aircrew Academy. If you visit aircrewacademy.com, you can see their incredible, groundbreaking website, and you can visit their blog, which is one of my favorite parts of the website. It's a great place to keep up with what is going on in the world of business aviation. Here's one. The latest blog, Max. Final last warning. Pilot records database. This is for the changes into the pilot record database. As you know, they were phasing out the PRIA, and so now there's a new hub to pull out your records. and you got to register depending on what type of operation you are, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of great stuff in the blog post, but what it does do is give you the instructions for you as a pilot to be able to log in and check out your database record. And so I actually did that and got mine all set up. It was actually pretty cool, and got to check on all my pilot info and see if there were any disapprovals or enforcement or anything. It's all right there in the records database. You can log in. We'll have a link in the show notes to that blog post so you can check it out if you'd like. I'm sure James O'Neill and other career coaches use this website to make sure they know what's on their clients' records. So I clicked on disapprovals. As I told you before, I failed my commercial multi, and I thought it would be on there, but it's not, because it was beyond the time of the database. So it's a clean record for me.
How does that make you feel?
Unbelievable.
You're too old.
I think
You're too old.
Yeah.
Basically.
You're just too old. I think it's fine. We'll give you one.
Nobody
freebie.
cares.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
All right. On to the mailbag. Would you like to tackle the first one?
Sure. Hi, guys. First off, I love the show. It's my go-to podcast for long drives or long deadheads. I was hoping you could do a show on the journey of becoming a parent in the airline career field. With the wave of hiring in the last few years, many of us, including myself, have reached the legacies fairly early on in their careers, and now we're starting to have families. In my late 20s, and for the longest time, it was all about chasing the flight time or the upgrade of the big plane. I recently found out my wife and I are expecting our first baby, and I'm both excited and terrified at the idea of becoming a dad, and a girl dad at that. Any advice or tips on how to balance the lifestyle and family obligations? Everyone wants to work the premium trips and earn the big bucks to provide for their family, but that needs to be balanced with making sure you're present in the lives of your children. How do you walk that tightrope? Thanks, Robert. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, right?
We have done a show about it. We did one that's kind of like, what's it like to be married to a pilot? So it was kind of more geared to the spouse of a pilot, although we certainly did talk about some different things before.
Here's what I would say. It's the value of the weekend. The value of not working on the weekends changes when you have kids, and depending on how old your kids are. So before your kids go to school, the weekend isn't quite as crucial. So you can be, it's easier to be junior, like from an airline standpoint or whatever job, a job where you have to work the weekends is much easier when your kids are not in school, because Saturday is the same as Tuesday. It doesn't make a difference. Yes. But as soon as your kids go to school, which also means they're at the age where they start playing sports and have activities, the weekend becomes huge, because that's when your kids are not in school, the only 2 days of the week, and all of the memorable things that you generally want to attend are taking place. So if there's a way, that's the biggest thing. It's very hard to be at work when things with your family are going on at home that you really want to be at.
Yeah.
So and I don't think that's really that apparent until you've had kids, unless someone tells you. You wouldn't think about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. The value of the weekend can always be important, especially if your spouse works and they have a traditional job where you're going to want to try and be off the same time anyways. But yeah, if the other adult is going to be staying at home, or the other parents can be staying at home with the kid, like exactly what you're saying, when they're young, Tuesday is the same as Saturday. So I think they mentioned being at a legacy at a young age. So I would say, yes, you're going to probably not be as motivated to pick up open time early on, so you may throttle back your work. So you may have less income coming in. The good news is kids are super cheap and don't cost any money, so you won't even notice the fact that you're making less.
Well, they get more expensive.
So I would financially prepare for that. I would say, and your other question is what's the support system in the town you're in? Do you have other relatives, in-laws and that kind of stuff in the city you're in? That can help you gauge like how much time you're going to need to be at home and what you're going to have to focus on from a time perspective there on cutting the income. The other thing I would say too is, if you're working for let's say you're flying for Delta and you're in Atlanta, it could be time to look at shifting to a different fleet. Might be a good move. It sucks being in training when you've got a kid, at home and you're gone a ton. But if you can get onto a fleet with better flexibility, that might be something worth considering as well.
Well, and one of the things we've always
by
said...
better flexibility, I probably mean like a bigger, like more airplanes.
At the big legacy airlines, too, that operate multiple aircraft types,
yeah.
If you're ever going to move, it would probably be the time, like before you have, assuming you don't have other factors and family in town stuff. But if you're going to move if you're in Phoenix at American, you're like, ultimately I'll end up commuting to the wide body or whatever. I mean, this might be the time to move to the Big D and have all of those options and go to training and be home every night or, versus be gone for 6 weeks. There's so many benefits.
Yeah. Save some of that because our flight advice is commuting question also. So we don't want to beat the dead horse too hard here.
All right.
Okay. Good luck. Congratulations, Robert, on kiddo on the way. Good luck. Next email says, listening to episode 130, and I completely agree with Roy. In fact, as a 135 guy, it's exactly what I do. $2 bills. I tend to order $100 worth of $2 bills at a time from the bank, so they're extra fresh and crisp, and then hand them out for shuttle drivers or hotel housekeeping. And $100 worth of $2 bills takes up something like half the space of 100 in ones. But I'm a pilot, and I don't do math in public, so do your own math. I don't know Roy, but just for the fact that he also goes out of his way to get $2 bills, I think we'd get along. Sounds like a stand-up guy. Mike. Is Mike like Roy's cousin or something?
I don't know.
Is he a plant?
I think they
That's a good
need
email.
to reach
Mike.
out.
I appreciate it. Yeah. We need to connect them. Yeah.
All right, Dylan and Max, I wanted to echo Roy's review of the Strong Bag Helix in episode 130. He was spot on. The bag feels well built, and I too fell for the ergonomic and lightweight of the single handle design. The bag and the carbon fiber handle do feel well made, but the benefits end there. The bag is tiny, and it has been one of the factors making me dread my first year of airline transition from the military. Trying to pack for overnights with this bag is miserable. I like to try either to work out or do active outdoor activities on my layers, but I have large feet, size 13, and so by the time I put a pair of Hoka running shoes in the bag, I can barely fit anything else. They don't even fit across sideways, and instead I have to go vertically on either side of the handle. If your layover is somewhere cold, forget it. To make matters worse, the bag is so small it always gets buried by the flight attendant bags in the closet on the 7-3. The crew van drivers are always stumped by the handle and end up dropping on themselves. I'm finishing up a stint of military leave and heading back to the airline soon. The Helix is the first thing I intend to change about my airline kit. I really do think it's well made, but it's just too compromised of a design space-wise. If all your layers are in the Caribbean and you only plan to wear Speedos, it's probably fine. Also, thanks for what you guys do. Your content and guest speakers were very helpful in understanding aspects of civilian aviation, and I'd recommend 21.5 to buddies who are also planning to take the plunge getting out of active duty. Respectfully, Andy F. Well, there you go.
Good email. Yeah. Last email comes from Caleb. He says, just wanted to share my perspective as a line tech in the Challenger 350 versus Gulfstream 280 debate. Ooh. In my opinion, the 350 is superior for ground handling, particularly for towing, greater turn limits, taller nose, shorter distance between nose gear and aircraft nose, and the tail is 2 feet lower, making hangars more accessible. It's also better for lav servicing. The G280's requirement for clean water only in the lav is a pain. The CL350's lav service panel is wonderfully designed. Weird statement, I know, but it's a big deal in the line tech world to have a good lav panel. I can't say anything about flying or riding in these types, but all the details are important, so there you are. This is the first episode I listened to, and I like the professional pilot perspective that you're sharing with a fun attitude. Blue skies and right rudder, and that's from Caleb.
Caleb, I disagree with the right rudder.
Yeah, could be left rudder.
It could be.
Never know. So you dump the 280. 280's got the regular black water, and then you have to fill it with potable water, though, right? Because it's going in because it's a vacuum toilet. But do you? My question is, when you dump it, do you have to put any water back into the black tank?
No. Why would you do that?
No. I don't know if they want a little like.
There's like a flushing
water
procedure that they do because you want to like flush it and keep the sensors clean and yada yada. But no, you just dump it and then you just keep the potable. But the potable water it lasts a lot longer than it uses very little water per flush.
Where's your potable water? Is it like in the baggage?
Yeah, it's in the baggage behind a panel on the wall. I mean, they service it normal, but you can if you're in a bind. If you just you can fill it with a funnel and a gallon of water. Or gallons of water.
I'm going to take a video of how awesome the 350's potable water is. It's the best design I've ever seen. 350, not 300. It's just this jug that's sitting in the back, which is complete. You don't have to remove a panel. It's right there. You literally can just unstrap it, pick it up. You take it. You can take it in the FBO if it's cold and just leave it in the hanger. Or if you go find any faucet, fill it up, and then put it right back on. It's really, really handy. I think 5. It's really cool.
Ours
and
is
you're
10.
and the caps right there
But
too.
it's
You could
installed.
just.
We had that in the G3. We had like 2. Do you know what a Cornelius keg is? Like the old. It was like that. 2 of those that you could use and take out, which is kind of nice, I guess. The cool thing, I tell you what. One cool thing about the 280 is the fill nipples are heated. Have you ever had that problem?
That is, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Real deal.
You would think the Canadians would have thought
debate,
of that, not the Israelis, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's only on the 280.
That's a good point.
200.
Yeah. All right. Well, good perspective from Caleb. I like hearing from other folks.
The 280 does look weird.
interesting.
There's so much room between the tip of the nose and the nose gear. Like when they put it on the Electro, it's like in your face if you're the driver. It's pretty weird. It's funky
it's
looking.
right there.
It's like right there.
What's up, guys?
And it's low too, so it's like
yeah, it's dicey. Okay, that's going to do it for the mailbag. If you want to participate in the conversation, you know what to do. Shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com. We will happily read your email in an upcoming episode.
happily.
All right, Max, the main event. Here we go.
Go ahead. Quickly.
Flight advice. Can you tell the listeners, Max, who sponsors Flight Advice?
Harvey Watt, the leading carrier of loss of license insurance. If you're a professional pilot and you happen to rely on this job for your sole source of income or majority of your income, you should definitely have loss of license insurance. Over 70% of pilots will experience a medical loss at one point in their career, and Harvey Watt is here to protect you. Check out all of their offerings at harveywatt.com.
Well done. You're a pro. You want me to read this to you?
Yes.
Okay. Hey guys, huge fan of the podcast. Thanks so much for getting my question. I am a current military pilot, about 2 years away from getting out and transitioning to civilian flying. I'm sitting at approximately 2,000 total, multi-engine turbine, with over 1,000 PIC and plenty of instructor evaluator time. I'm also actively flying still for the next 2 years before I separate, and I expect another 500 hours in that period. My wife and I want to live in Cincinnati when I get out, and I'd be looking to fly out of CVG, which, from what I can find, has a lot of opportunities through ULCCs, regionals, corporate, and cargo, just no majors. My question is this. Is commuting really as bad as I hear in pilot forums and elsewhere? If the worst of online complaining is to be believed, I'd be taking 5 years off my life and guaranteeing a divorce if I don't live in base. I feel like it would be crazy not to go to a major if the hiring holds out like it currently is, even if I have to commute. However, if the quality of life is really that horrible, then I'm open to something different. As the sole source income for a family of 5, the money is important to me, especially since I'm not doing 20 years of active duty and won't have a pension to fall back on. Thanks in advance for any advice that you can provide. And that's from John. And he did include a couple stats, kind of alluded to already. He's 30 right now, married with 3 kids.
All right, John, this is going to be a short one. The answer is yes. Thanks for writing in.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Thanks, John. All right.
No,
Flight advice is brought to you by Harvey Watt.
It is. Put it this way, John. I've said this before, and I will say it again. If I had to commute and I was not, if I wanted to live where I wanted to live, and if I had to commute, I would not be an airline pilot. That's how big of a deal it is to me. And I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, the commute's fun." Everybody say is either the commute sucks or the commute is not that bad, which means
not that bad. Yeah.
So it's just a matter. It is. It's horrible. It's a waste. It's a balance though. It's a huge time suck. You will spend more days away from home. You will spend way more time at work, quote unquote, not making money. So it's free. It's free time. And so it's one of those things though. It is very hard to know what it's like until you've done it. And therefore it does give you a bigger appreciation of living in base. So I think if you said, listen, and you sold your wife on the fact that, listen, we will live in Cincinnati forever and I will just commute and I'll just make it work, I would not back yourself into that corner until you've tried it. If you want to live in Cincy and you want to do your thing and you decide you want to go to the majors and you're going to try commuting, then go for it. Give it a shot. See what it's like. But I would have a very honest conversation based on what you hear here, or have your wife listen to this, that it sucks. It sucks for everybody. It will suck for you the most. It will suck for her, and it will suck for your kids because you won't be here. Like if you have an early morning start, you're going in the night before, and then you have to buy a hotel. So it's costing time and money. And same on the back end. If you get in late, you're going to have to sleep in the crew room or go get a hotel, and then you're going to come back the next morning. So what I would encourage you to do is have a plan B. Say, listen, let's pick an airline that has a base that you both could see yourselves potentially living in, and say, look, if this just becomes too much for any of us, then we agree we're going to move here. And so I wouldn't just go into it with that's your only plan. I would have a plan B because it does suck very badly.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you make Atlanta work? Could you make Dallas work? What about Chicago, Denver? One of the cities that we know is going to for sure be a cornerstone city for one of the majors. I think the other thing is a trap that people will go into, because look, it's hard to get hired at a major airline. You're going to put forth a lot of work, probably maybe some money with a career coach, a lot of time getting all your records right and getting, the prep, and just there's a lot of work. And then you get hired, and then training is 3, maybe 4 months long, and then there's IOE, and then the amount of time you have invested to get to a airline is significant. And so once you get there, you're not going to be eager to be like, let me go hop over to this other airline or let me do this other thing. And so that's the other thing I would be real nervous on, is if you're like, you know what, I'll just try this commuting thing. And then if it doesn't work out, like, I'll just hop to the next place. After you've been somewhere for a couple of years and you have seniority and everything else, it's going to make leaving, you could get yourself into a situation where you're sort of like, it just doesn't make sense to leave. But then you're sort of in this like purgatory situation where you're like, and you're on second year pay and you're making more money. And it's like, it's easy to see why people get stuck in the trap in that situation. That's all I'll say. And it might be the right decision to try it and do that. And then, if you have the ability to pull, make a switch, or maybe you can just say, you know what, I'm going to tough it out, and that it is what it is. But just know that it's a huge mountain you have to climb to get to a legacy. So leaving it is a huge decision as well.
Well, here's one thing though I was looking at to see, because there's there's 2 different types of commuting in my opinion. There's not commuting is if you live in the city or a suburb of the city of where you're based at. Yeah. So like my commute to work is like 25 minutes, right, from my house. Then there's, if you live in another city that's 2 hours away or 3 hours away, some people that drive, which the difference is you can control that. Like you can control when you leave and when you go home. Like you're not waiting on an airline schedule or somebody else's schedule, right? And maybe there's a bus a lot of times, or like places where you don't even have to drive, you just ride, right? That's better. But like people like me, I can't stay. Like if I came in on a late trip, got in at 11 or midnight or whatever, and then had to drive 2 hours home at night, like I couldn't do that. I would fall asleep. It's too dangerous. I'd kill myself.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do it. Some people though, we have a friend that drives 2 hours home at 1, 2 in the morning. No problem. He goes Circle K, he gets his like big drink or whatever, and he's got his program, and he makes it happen. So there's that, and then there's commuting traditionally on your airline or another airline or whatever, right? And then you're at mercy of those schedules and the loads and all of that. That's a whole nother thing that I think is more stressful and a lot more variable. So that being said, Cincinnati is, according to Google Maps, is 1 hour and 34 minutes from the Louisville airport. So, I mean, that's certainly drivable, and that would put you in range of a UPS is the mothership of UPS. So, if you think you could be a cargo guy, that's certainly drivable. A lot of people do drive like that. A lot of people do a lot further drive. I mean, I think Chicago is probably too far.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be, let's see here.
That was good. Yeah. I was looking at the cargo operators because I feel like there's probably some other, I was looking, Kalita didn't have
4 hours,
like home base.
45 minutes.
So there are some.
Just Chicago. Yeah. I mean, Nashville, you know, Southwest has a base there now, but that's going to be like 4 hours and 7 minutes. Like that's too much.
No,
Indy,
I would say
there's no
2 hour drive is kind of.
Yeah.
So I could say you could look. There's home base cargo, that you could look at, and then obviously the NetJets angle, NetJets FlexJet, fractional, where you are, they'll pay for you. You're still commuting to the airplane, but the difference is it's on the company time and not on your time. So that would be the other way to explore it. But, you know, if money is the most important thing, then you're probably going to make it at the major. But
well, no, it would be living
time.
In Cincinnati is the most important thing.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's...
Yeah. And then money. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like Cincinnati, time, money. Pick any two.
But I don't disagree with him about, like, I don't want to live anywhere else. I like living here. Families here. Sure. Like I have really not considered living anywhere else. So you kind of got to make it work around what your priorities are.
Precisely. Right. So good luck. I think.
Let us know what you decide.
Yeah, this is one. You know, like we've had career coaches on in the past. James sits you down with your spouse. You go through all these questions. You really figure out your priorities. This sounds like, you may have already done it, but this sounds like one of those where you can really go through and understand the ramifications of your decision. So good luck. Anything else to add?
Yeah. One last thing. So a lot of people, because commuting sucks. So you get a dude on your jump seat, and he's like, yeah, I live in whatever, and blah, blah, blah. It's so funny because a lot of times they always say, yeah, my wife just won't move. It's where she's from.
Yeah.
And if you think about like some of our friends that live in Prescott, like they didn't grow up there, but all of their wives did.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'll tell you,
that's a thing.
If you got kids, where your wife's family's at, that could be the difference, between not even just the commute, but the career in general.
Yeah, but you still should live in base, because that way, if you're young and you're single, then when you meet a girl who's from that city and grew up there and not going to let you move, you're already in base.
Yeah, right. Okay. That could be a new dating site. We should do in base couple.
Could you imagine?
You have to be yes, you like a firm. Women, they don't have to pay, I guess anybody, but you can't just say women anymore. But anybody, you don't have to pay, but you just have to agree to live in base of a major airline. You commit. You're like, I'm here. My parents are here. We're in Dallas, and then
it's perfect.
And then on your side is the crew member.
Yeah. And you would only fall into the buckets of the airlines that have bases of where you've agreed to live. Right. So if if it's Atlanta, we could be helping people.
If you're the crew member, then you have to upload a proof of your domicile,
and your parents' latest utility bill.
Yeah. How do we? Yeah. Genius. Wow. I have to think of a name. Somebody send us a good name for that idea. That'd be great. Be perfect.
In
All right. If only it was that easy.
Right.
If only it was that easy. All right. Is going to do it for flight advice. It was going pretty good, and then we went off the rails at the end. Sorry, John. Hopefully part of this was useful.
This wasn't what about Bob this time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Thanks to Harvey Watt for their longtime sponsorship of the Flight Advice segment, harveywatt.com, for all of their offerings. Thanks to everyone else who participated as well. Timothy P. Pope, Ferris Jet Sales, the AirComp Calculator, Advanced Aircrew Academy, and all the listeners, of course. Let's recognize them, Max, for all of the great content that they have been sharing. It's been awesome. Summertime, going to be interesting for us, getting episodes out here for the next month or so, I'd say. We're going to do our best, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it might not be every week here.
Yeah.
We only have a very short amount of summer with our children.
Listen,
so
Dylan, some of us need to go on a cruise, okay? Enough time for all this.
Exactly. Are you going to... Now, did you find a cruise ship with a cold plunge?
No. I'll probably be taking a break. Who knows? You never know these days. These cruise ships, they got everything.
Maybe the ocean water. Maybe
it's virgin, too.
When
it's
you
very
go to the
progressive.
Port of call,
so.
you can just... Maybe when you're in the port of call, the
ocean
will be cold enough.
Did you see the video from Aspen? The cold plunge?
No.
We're at the Maroon Bells. Have you heard of this? It's like up there. I've you been there?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's
I've
awesome.
hiked it, yeah.
And
really cool.
we're up there, and it's like, there's snow still. This is in June. I mean, it's not that late in the summer, right? It's all snow melt off or run off, and so we were hiking there, and it just came over me, and I just stripped down to my skivs and jumped in the river. It was, I don't know. Unfortunately, my Apple Watch, when it gets to low battery, it doesn't display the temperature of the water. So I don't know what it was, but it was, I think sub 40. It was hard
sub
to talk.
40?
Yeah, it was, dude. It was just, it's melt off from snow. Like it's either frozen or it melts, and then you're sitting in it. So it can't be that much,
Even Christmas.
It was very cold.
Damn.
That's when you get in and it
impressive.
just sucks the breath.
How long were you in there for?
Oh, probably. I didn't time it. I don't know. Maybe a minute ish. Plus or minus 15 seconds, probably. I don't know. Somewhere around there. I didn't time it, so I don't really know.
Good
but then it was
for
a
you.
thing. Then you don't have a towel. It's not that warm already.
Yeah.
I didn't stay in that long because I didn't want to get too cold and then not be able to warm up.
Right. Wouldn't refire your core.
It was a whole thing. And then I get out and I'm standing there and a red fox comes trotting down the trail. And I'm just standing there in my underpants. It's the whole thing.
Wow.
What a trip. Owning the overnight.
Own the overnight. I love it. All right. That is going to do it. We'll be back soon. Until then, remember,
flexibility is the key to cold plunging in weird locations. We'll see you next time.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.